You know, what is it? The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. That is a mouthful. Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. It's been a while since I filmed a sit-down video, but today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. I can't believe we're already going into the second half of 2024. What even happened in the last 6 months? Like, did I even read any books? I'm pretty sure I've read at least 30 books this year. I felt like the same answers like kept coming up. So like I would pick the same books over and over again for all these different questions. So I'm gonna try to do this without using the same books over and over again for every question. I'm also gonna try to do this without giving like multiple answers for every question. Some of them will have multiple answers, but I'm gonna try my best to keep them to like one answer or like one book per question. In case you are interested in answering some of these questions yourselves or participating in this tag, I'll have it down below in the description. So let's get started. Question number one, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? And for this question, I didn't really have a whole lot to choose from. Even though I've read, like I said, like over 30 books so far, I only have had 2 5-star reads. So I can easily just pick those two, which would be The Romantic Agenda by Claire Kahn, which I did a whole reading vlog for. It's part of the Battle of the Booktubers. If you haven't seen that, I will have that video linked down below in the description and up in the cards. And then Alone with You in the Ether by Olive Blake, which is actually a relatively recent read for me. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. When I first started reading this book, I thought that I was not going to like it. I was very confused. I didn't really understand like the structure, like the setup of the book with like the narrators and stuff. I was very confused starting out. And honestly, I still don't even understand, like even after having finished the book, I still don't quite understand like the structure and the setup of this book, but it really doesn't matter because the content was so fascinating. I was captivated by the characters, the storyline, the science, the psychology. I loved it. It was a book that I constantly like wanted to pick up and read. Question number 2, what is the best sequel that you've read so far this year? And so I know that this is supposed to be like the year of the series, and it still is. And I've read a lot of series. Haven't finished a single one, but I've started a bunch. So this question was kind of tough, or I guess incredibly easy, because I've only read 1 sequel this year. Now, if Just for the Summer counts as a sequel because it's part of the Part of Your World series, I don't know if that series has a name or not, but if that book counts, then I would definitely pick that as the best sequel that I've read so far, but that might be a bit of a stretch since they're technically interconnected standalones. So if I have to go with like an actual series, like an actual sequel, by default, I have to pick the only one that I've read this year, which is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. I started filming that reading vlog back in like February or like March or something, around the same time that the whole like flood situation happened. So I don't remember if I ever finished filming the vlog for that, but that's the only sequel that I've read this year. So there may or may not be a reading vlog for that coming soon. Question number 3. What is a new release that you haven't read yet, but that you want to read? And for this, I would say Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham, which is a book that I was supposed to have read back in like January or something, and I just honestly haven't gotten around to reading it yet. Stacey Willingham is an author that I've read multiple books of hers. I've enjoyed the first 2 that I have read from her. And also the other book that I'm very excited to read that I haven't read yet, that is a new release this year, is the, what is it called? I think it's called A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana, which is the same author that wrote The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I loved. I thought that book was so much fun. Had such a good time reading that. So very excited to see what the author has in store for the, what is it? The Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. They apparently like to make titles that are like just a lot of words. Question number 4, what is your most anticipated release of the second half of the year? And I honestly don't even know like what books are even coming out in the second half of the year. There were books that came out in the first half of the year that I didn't even know anything about. Yeah, as far as what's coming out in the second half of the year, the only book that I can think of that comes out in the second half of the year, it's on a technicality because it comes out like in early July, I think, is called The White Guy Dies First, and it's written by a bunch of authors of color. It's an anthology of like 13 horror stories. It's written by a bunch of authors of color. Very recognizable names on this list, and that's kind of what caught my attention, other than the title itself, obviously. But you've got Tiffany D. Jackson, who has a plethora, an extensive backlog of books that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I know that she's like a very like loved author. Very recognizable name. There's another author whose name I can't pronounce, but they wrote Ace of Spades. I read Ace of Spades last year and I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. And I haven't gotten a chance to read the new release, Where Sleeping Girls Lie. Also, Kaylin Barron, I think is her name. I might have mispronounced that. But she wrote You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. She may have written some other things, but the book that I read of hers was You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, which was also like really interesting. It was kind of cliche, but like on purpose. It was like an intentionally cliche storyline that had a very unique and interesting twist, which I thought was cool. I'm so excited to see, you know, whatever she comes up with for this. And then the book is edited by Terry J. Benton Walker, who is the author of Blood Debts and Blood Justice. I was obsessed with Blood Debts last year. I made it like my host favorite for a lot of different readathons and stuff. Great book, super fun. I think there's like 10 other authors besides the ones that I just named that are also a part of this project. So a lot of very notable authors that are part of this project. So very excited to see, you know, how these stories turn out. Question number 5, what book is the biggest disappointment that you've had this year? And for this, I would have to say probably Suburban Hell by Maureen Kilmer, I think is the author. And I actually buddy read this with Leandra and Danny a couple of months back. I thought it would be like great to read kind of like a funny Real Housewives, like exorcism type of story. But that is not at all what it was. Instead, it wasn't really funny. The plot was kind of inconsistent and there was a lot of like missed opportunities in my opinion. I think I enjoyed the overall experience of reading it, more so because I had fun like reading it with Leandra and Danny. I had a lot of fun like talking to them about like what the author should have done or what the author could have done to make the story more interesting or to kind of connect some dots and stuff. We basically wrote our own story, so that was a lot of fun. I went into it expecting that I was really gonna like it, and so the fact that I ended up like not really enjoying it much at all, that's the reason why it's the most disappointing. Question number 6, what is the biggest surprise book that you've read this year? And this was kind of a tough one, but I think for this one I would have to say Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Suburban Hell was the most disappointing book because I went into it expecting that I was going to like it and then didn't. And with Things We Never Got Over, it was the exact opposite. I went into it expecting that I was not going to like it. Absolutely never had any intentions of ever even picking this book up. Like I read the synopsis and I just wasn't interested in it, on top of the fact that the book is a brick. So at no point did I ever have any interest or desire to pick this book up. I actually only picked it up because it was the book that I had to read for the 5-star exchange. So I have a whole reading vlog dedicated to this book. If you have not seen the 5-star exchange, highly recommend going to check that out. I will have season 1 and season 2 linked down below in the description. And season 3 will be coming to you this summer, so stay tuned for that. And it's gonna be a little bit different than how I've done it in the past. But yeah, I had to read it for the 5-star exchange. And so that's the only reason why I picked this book up. And I was so pleasantly surprised, honestly. It was actually really funny to go back and like watch the footage of me being like, oh, I don't want to read this. Oh, I'm gonna hate this. Question number 8. Yes, I realized I skipped number 7. We'll come back to that later. Question number 8. Who is your newest fictional crush? I think this is the only time that I'm gonna have to repeat a book because I'm gonna have to go with Fox from The Romantic Agenda. I really liked him, I guess the most out of all the different characters that I've read about over the last 6 months. I really like how he handled and how he dealt with like Joy's asexuality and how open he was to it, how much he was like willing to learn more about it and kind of like explore, you know, that side. I wish that I could have seen more of their relationship, especially like once they decided to get together and you know, actually making it official and being a couple, because I would like to see like how he as an aloe man navigates their relationship. But based on what we got in the book, he's probably like my favorite male love interest that I've read so far this year. Question number 9. Who is your newest favorite character? And this was tough. And this was a question like all about, you know, the books that I've read ever or like the books that I've read last year. Would have been plenty to choose from, but just going based off of the books that I've read this year, there weren't a ton of characters that really stood out to me as like favorites, especially not without repeating books that I've already mentioned. So I'm gonna have to go with Carrie Soto from Carrie Soto is Back. I really, even though this wasn't like a favorite book of mine, especially it wasn't one of my favorite TGR books, probably my least favorite TGR books to be honest, but I really liked Carrie Soto. I liked how she operated, I liked how her brain worked, I liked how she was like very passionate, and I thought it was interesting how like single-minded she was, but how focused it kept her, and how under all of that very like tough exterior, there was still like layers of humanity to her. She was a very complex character. She was very blunt. She was very to the point, but I think I liked that about her. Question number 10, what is a book that made you cry? And I spent a really long time scrolling back and forth through the books that I've read this year, just going back and forth, looking at the list over and over and over again, like hoping that something would be there that wasn't there before. I could not for the life of me like find a single book that even like brought me close to tears. I was trying to like just find anything, like I was like grasping at straws. I was like, okay, well, if it didn't make me cry, if it didn't bring me to tears, was there something that I read that was like really, really sad? And I could not, I could not come up with a single book for this question. So unfortunately, I do not have an answer for this because I would be lying if I gave you an answer. Question number 11. What is a book that made you happy? And again, this was one that was kind of tough because I feel like if it's a book that made me happy, it probably would have also been like one of the best books that I've read this year, or it would have been a book that was, you know, the biggest surprise. You know, it would have been a book that I've already used for another question. So trying to find an answer for this question that isn't repetitive was difficult. So in an effort to not repeat and reuse books that I've already talked about, I think I'm gonna go with When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This was another book that surprised me. I actually only read this book because of a video that I did. It's not out yet, but it will be coming out very soon in the next couple of weeks. It was kind of a collab video that I did with some other booktubers, and I needed to read this book for that video. I didn't go into it expecting that I would like it. It was something that I just needed to do for the sake of content. I didn't actually think that I would like it or enjoy it. And then I walked away giving it a 4.75 stars. So I surprised myself at how much I liked the book. And it really made me happy. I thought it was funny. I thought it was cute. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. Circling back around to question number 7. Who was your favorite new author that you've read this year? And this is one of those questions where I'm gonna have to sort of indirectly reuse books that I've already talked about, but technically it's not the same because I'm talking about the authors and not the books. So for this, I'm gonna say Sarah Adams definitely has to be number 1 because she is the only author out of my highest rated books this year who I've read more than one book from. There are other authors like Claire Kahn and Olivia Blake, which I mentioned earlier, that I gave their books 5 stars, but I've only ever read one of their books. So it's hard for me to say like, oh, you're the best author when I've only read one book by this person. So for Sarah Adams, I read When in Rome, and I also read The Cheat Sheet. So yeah, I have to by default, I feel like, say Sarah Adams. I think I would have to read more books by Claire Kahn and Olivia Blake for me to be able to like with confidence say that they are like new favorite authors of mine. Question number 12. What is the most beautiful cover? And for this, I have 2 answers. I guess technically, in terms of we're actually going with like beautiful, like the most beautiful cover of a book that I have like purchased this year, I'm gonna have to go with, I'll pull this off the shelf since it's sitting right next to me. But yeah, The Wren in the Holly Library. Do I have any idea what this book is about? Absolutely not, but I love the cover. I thought it was gorgeous. And then the sprayed edges are so pretty. And then even like the naked hardback, well, first of all, let's talk about these end pages. Like, hello gorgeous, beautiful, love it. And then like the naked hardback is also super pretty. Back too, like it's just so pretty. So hopefully I like this book. I have no idea what it's about, but I saw it and I was like, oh, this needs to be on my shelf. So this is definitely the most beautiful cover that I've purchased this year. But I do want to just want an excuse to talk about this book. And since we're talking about covers, what better time to talk about it? But it is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. I thought this cover was so cool. Not just the cover, but like the sleeve that it's in. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. And the cover itself is really cool because it looks like a VHS or whatever, but like this Barnes & Noble exclusive edition is the one that has the sleeve. So it's like the VHS sleeve. Obsessed. It's giving like all the nostalgic vibes. I am absolutely obsessed with this. This is like one of my like favorite books on my shelf, and like once I'm able to go home and like set my bookshelves up and stuff, I'm definitely going to have like this book on display. Question number 13. What books do you still need to read by the end of the year? And again, pretty easy question for me to answer because I did a whole video where I talked about books that are on my self-destruct list, which is a list of books that if I do not read them by the end of this year, I'm gonna have to unhaul them, even if I haven't read them yet. And so that has put a little bit of fire under me. I think I had maybe like 9 or 10 books on that list, and I think out of the 9 or 10 on the list, I think I probably have only read like 2 so far. Definitely want to get those books read before the end of the year so I don't have to unhaul them without having read them. And the last question, question number 14, is what is your favorite video that you've posted? And I didn't really have a whole lot to choose from. This answer is kind of like an easy one for me because I didn't even post any videos, like outside of Wind Down Wednesdays. I didn't post anything in March, April, or May, so I really only had like January and February videos to choose from outside of the most recent videos that I've done for the Battle of the Booktuber. I feel like it goes without saying that I'm gonna have to pick my February TBR. If you've seen that video, then you already know why that's my favorite video. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but if I may say so myself, I feel like I slayed with the outfit. I feel like I slayed with the intro. So that will forever be a video that I am like very, very proud of. And those are all the questions for the mid-year freakout tag. If you made it this far into the video, drop the surprise emoji, like the one, drop that down below in the comments if you made it this far into the video. Be sure to hit that like button, that would help me out so much. And of course, subscribe if you are not already subscribed. Let me know down below how you guys have been doing with your reading this year. Let me know who your favorite or least favorite characters are or books are, what your most surprising book or most disappointing book was, and what books do you have on your radar for the second half of the year. As always, my socials and links are down below in the description, and I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet. Bye.